Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions. I bet you weren't expecting to see me again this year, especially after I said I was going to take the rest of the holiday season off. But I figured this is the season of giving. I wanted to give back to the community a little bit, and the biggest part of the community, sure, is the progressive music fans, and I feel like they certainly get a lot of representation on the channel. So I started to think of a large and vocal group within the community that is kind of underrepresented within the reactions themselves. And well, Will Wood came to mind. The fans of Will Wood are really vocal. In fact, we checked out the Normal album a couple of years back, and to this day, I still get 1 to 2 comments on that video every single month. Always somebody bringing up new discussion or, expanding on something I discussed within the album, or even just asking when we're going to return to Will's work. So that's what we're going to do today. I figure to give back, we'll return to Will Wood's discography, this time checking out the album Selfish. I hope you enjoy. All right, let's kick this off. This is a short album though. Only 8 tracks and 33 minutes in total. Most of these songs are in the 3 to 5 minute range. We have a couple that go over 5, but we also have a couple that are just a little over 2, so it kind of balances out here. I do notice that track 1 is Self, track 8 is Ish. Being that the album is selfish, does it mean that everything between these 2 tracks is the album? That would be really great wordplay, where maybe we have, they are the shortest tracks too, Self and Ish, barely over 2 minutes each. Maybe they are some sort of bookend, an intro and an outro to the album, where everything in between, based on the namesake of this album, is the album itself. Will Wood, I remember back to the Normal album, and wordplay is really strong with him. So I could see this being very intentional here. A great way to sandwich the album between the album title. That's just very cool. Let's kick it off and see what Will is bringing to the table with Self. Yeah, beautiful little melody here.
I'll shake the apples from my family tree, so when the autumn comes to take the leaves, we'll write history books from memories that we shared and will forget. Well, I don't remember.
Yeah, this is recorded as if it were a live session. Maybe it is a live session, but there's little conversations going on in the background.
And compared to that, well, I'm doing well. So I pray to God it really did. Well, they always ask you not to leave, and I am as they remember me. So when all my friends forget my name, no, I won't come back and be the same. No, I won't come back and be the same. Oh. And I'm gonna be myself again.
All right. Solid start to this album. Just piano and vocals. We have harmonic information, just kind of pulling through chords on the left hand. We have that melody on the right hand that is very memorable. And then we have the vocals, and they're pairing off with the right hand melody and kind of expanding on that and pulling it into a slightly different direction to expand on that vibe, which is generally a type of beauty. There are little dips in there. You need contrast. You need tension for resolution to hit. I don't think that there's too much to be read from that. It is consistently beautiful throughout and incredibly balanced. It never quite feels like it goes overboard in its theatrics, though it does get fairly large. The way that I kind of see this is we have two sections that are sort of a medium intensity, and then we have that section that popped up about like a minute and a half in, and he kind of jumps up about half an octave, pushes the volume up one level, just gets a little more, a little louder, a little more present, really makes this moment feel impactful, and then brings it back down. It's really nice pacing, pretty standard. I mean, this is a short piano and vocal bit, 2.5 minutes. There's really not a lot to say about it that you probably didn't pick up on yourself. It's a straightforward track and a great way to introduce an album. I have no idea what we're in store for here. The normal album had a lot of different styles and variety on it. So I'm not going to assume that this is just going to be like loungier ideas, or I'd even say like quasi show tune. It kind of feels like it wants to push in that direction, but it gets tapered off a little bit. But I am expecting more of this. Really classy ideas in general. It might get smashed together with rock concepts or electronic or pop ideas, whatever. But this classy underbelly to it, I think, is going to be rather persistent, or at least I'm hoping so, given that that's the way this album is starting. Let's check out some lyrics. All right. We seem to have a few disparate ideas here, each of the verses kind of exploring something a little different. I find it interesting that the music worked so well in its pacing and growth and connectivity, and then lyrically we're kind of jumping around between ideas, but I'm going to understand it as possibly foreshadowing for other things, particularly because of something we'll explore in a moment. But let's kick it off with verse 1. I'll shake the apples from my family tree, so when the autumn comes to take the leaves, we'll write history books from memories that we shared and will forget. First of all, we have the rhyme scheme here. We have tree, leaves, memories, and then forget. I think that's interesting because we'll see the same thing happening elsewhere as well, where almost everything rhymes, but then it just doesn't. Almost as if there's a lack of completion to it. But the idea here about shaking the apples from the family tree and having autumn come and take the leaves. So we have this concept of death here as the trees die. Leaves fall to the ground. Autumn takes them. We have this idea of passing, especially when you compare it with a family tree. So the leaves being taken is metaphorical for people being taken from the family. It could be that they simply leave, or it could be that they pass away. It says, regardless, we will write history books from memories that we shared and will forget. And I think that's interesting. History is often forgotten, remembered by those who need to remember it the least. But at one time we did share these memories, and they will be written down in history books. So something about our past will be forgotten even though we document it. Verse 12, though, it says, I don't remember 2012. Sorry, this is verse 2. I don't remember 2012, but I heard the world would turn to hell. And compared to that, well, I'm doing well, so I pray to God it really did. Now, 2012 has the EL sound that we see in Hell and in Well. It's a soft rhyme, but it is one nonetheless. And then we wrap it up with did. Once again, almost reaching that completion and then not. Now, we have an element here of the apocalypse stuff that was happening in 2012. Was that the Aztec or Mayan calendar, one of the two, saying that the world was going to end in 2012. I vaguely remember this. But he says he doesn't remember that year. But compared to the world turning to hell, he's doing pretty good. But he does pray that it did go to hell, that this apocalypse did happen. So apparently, as good as things are going for him, it's still not as good as if an apocalypse had happened. So maybe things aren't doing so well for him. Verse 3, they always ask you not to leave, and I am as they remember me. So when all my friends forget my name, no, I won't come back and be the same. So here we have an AABB rhyme scheme, which is different from the AAAB rhyme scheme that we saw in the other two verses. I'm not sure what to make of this, why this change exists at all, and I'm not really too sure what to make of this section. Basically says that people will remember me as I am today, but they will eventually forget my name, and when they do, I won't be the same. I'm going to be myself again. So I wonder if this is... I try not to attribute lyrics to lyricists, because you can certainly sing about things that aren't entirely personal to you. But given how personal the normal album was, I want to gravitate towards that. And I wonder if Will Wood is talking about his persona as an artist versus who he is. And while there probably is some overlap there, there is certainly some distance too. He says, when people forget me for my artist, I will be able to return to who I am. I'll be able to be myself again. At least that's how I read it. Though he also says that my friends will forget my name. And that seems to be less about fans and him being remembered as an artist and more something more personal. Why would his friends be forgetting him though? I don't know. Regardless, there's quite a few different ideas going on in here. And like I said, I'm kind of viewing it as a sort of foreshadowing for things, particularly because track 2 is called 2012, which is referenced right here in verse 2. So let's dive into that and see if this second verse is some sort of prelude to that. The grace note was nice over here. Okay.
Fuck! I was next that criminal, so independently standing ignorant as fuck, but a brown individual, originally meant to live a goddamn miracle. It might have been metaphysical, but I think it was medical. Testing my hypothesis, never finding a theory. Emulated animals, mental aboriginals, a miserable fuck, but alive, down, mystical, anatomy, ritual, traditionally integral, the biblical originals, but literally pitiful. Too impatient for our patience.
The call and response between the two vocal styles. The really long walk down on that piano too. I love the harmonies. Oh, it went down this time. Dude, the harmonies sound great. Alright, got the funk scream in there.
autonomy, modify a lot of me. I'll escape this reality. Be the next to Disney. I can only be the story by the side of sanatory, and it's only be a story I can tell a purgatory. I said once I lost it, can there be a
Throwing in a little bit of Phrygian in there. A lot of bit of Phrygian, okay. We got that reggaeton beat. Pulled us back to the opening piano melody.
By retracing my steps.
Okay, what?
Wow, I don't remember how I forgot myself.
Of course, why not?
I don't remember 2012. I don't remember how I forgot myself. I don't remember 2012. I heard the world would turn to hell. Compared to that, I'll do it well. I don't remember how I forgot myself. I don't remember 2012. I don't remember how I forgot myself. I don't remember 2012. I don't remember 2012. I don't remember 2012.
Wait, legit? That's the end? That's an anticlimactic ending. Especially because we're holding on to this tension. I mean, that's the whole point of hitting the chord and then kind of having silence and the vocals do their thing and then hitting the chord again. You're hanging on to this tension. This is your leading tone. It tells you where we're going and you just keep hanging on to it. And that's why when we land on that final time and run through the rest of the phrase, you get that release. You've been hanging on to this tension for so long, and the song just ends on that. There's no resolution here. But also because 4 times now, we've heard this idea. We know how it's supposed to end, what it's supposed to move into, and here we are denied that. Using our expectations against us, expectations that Will Wood himself implanted within us. That's a rude ending right there. I want my resolution, dude. But that's probably what makes it so good, too. I don't know the lyrics yet. We'll read those in a bit. But something tells me that once I start understanding what the track is about, linguistically, the lyrics of it, I'll understand why he chose to bring the ending out that way. But I do feel a bit disappointed with the ending. Not that it's bad, just that it isn't resolved. It isn't the way endings are supposed to be, you know? Yeah. All right. So we have a jazzy kind of track, bit funky too. It's got some nice rock elements to it. It is, I think, primarily still piano and vocals. We do have the bass and the drum expanding out the rhythm section here. But I feel like a lot of this, for the most part, is still revolving around piano melodies. The piano as our harmonic device, giving us our chord progression. And then, of course, Will's vocals on top of that, which take up so much of this song. There's so many vocals, so many lyrical lines. Dude, the second verse just delivered so quickly. I don't remember if that was 8th notes or 16th notes, but it was constant. No stops for quite some time, just kept going and going and going. I'm a bit apprehensive to get into the lyrics on this because I figure it's going to be a dense wall of text that I need to decipher and figure out what he's going on about. There's definitely a lot though, and like I said, that pairs well with the piano and does kind of carry off from where we kicked the album off. It is still piano and vocal, but we're expanding it now. One of the things that we expanded with, the drums. I love the drum work on this. The rhythms are consistently altering. There's not really a lot of fancy drum fills in here. It's not a lot of melodic drumming, but there is a lot of styles being represented. The drum patterns, despite being static within themselves, it's constantly shifting between types of rock beats, types of pop beats, types of, I don't know, even I mean, funk is definitely present in here too, but I think that there is at least one Spanish beat in here too, like an Afro-Cuban thing going on. So it's varied and diverse, even though each moment is kind of just, you know, this is the style. It's pretty typical for the style. There's not a lot of flourish to it. We go through so many of them and it creates a lot of variety through this track. But there's also the expanded instrumentation, the saxophones, the trumpets. These instruments continue to increase the energy of this track. It feels like every couple of seconds, like every 30 seconds or so, we're getting more instruments that are just delivering higher intensity energy. The song continues to evolve upwards, becoming more energetic, more dancey. I don't know how that's possible. I was pretty engaged with the dancey element at the beginning, but as we added more and more layers, you get sucked into the groove even more. But it also brings about a mix of, I suppose it's a mix of that high energy, right? It feels like a party, especially as we have so many layers going on. It feels like, you know, being at a party and there's so many conversations going on around you. But it also begins to feel claustrophobic. I don't know if anyone else got that. I think part of it is also some of the harmonic edge to this track brings a darkness to it. But it begins to feel oddly chaotic, I think is the word I want here. It becomes too densely layered. It is still upbeat and bright and colorful, but kind of like getting a tummy ache after eating too many sweets. This is too much of this bright positivity, too much of this dancey energy. It becomes overwhelming. Maybe that's why it ends so abruptly. No longer is our protagonist enjoying this party. No longer is the party a good thing. It has become twisted and distorted. It just needs to end. And so we leave abruptly. The door slams, the song is over. Granted, there's no slamming in here. I'm just trying to figure out what the music's supposed to represent. But that's kind of what I get out of it. It becomes incredibly overbearing. And I think it's interesting too that we have that harmonic swap in the bridge. The verses and the choruses are expansions. Sorry, the verse and chorus, and then the second verse and chorus expands upon the first. The underlying ideas, the piano chords, the melody that the piano likes to pick up every now and then, the vocal melodies, generally the same, the drum parts, generally the same. All of it is designed to be bright and fun and energetic, funky. I can't believe Will threw in one of those funk style screams in there, dude. Dude's got chops, man, honestly. We'll have to talk about that in a second. But when we get to the bridge, we shift over to Phrygian. Now, the Phrygian mode has a bit of bite to it. It's probably my favorite modal shift. And it kind of takes on a psychedelic bend. I don't think so much because of Phrygian. I don't think Phrygian is naturally psychedelic in its characteristics, but because of the rhythmic changes, because of some of the timbre changes, the instrumental alterations in here, and then of course the chordal change moving into the Phrygian mode, it starts to feel a bit odd. It's like what we were listening to, but a little darker, a little distorted, a little twisted. Maybe this is why it started to feel overwhelming to me even as we came back into the typical mode of the track where we had already been. Maybe some of that darkness was residual. Maybe I still felt it. Maybe I couldn't shake that moment. I don't know, but the whole bridge feels melty. What used to be very distinct sounds and ideas in my mind, I can remember the bass lick, I can remember the piano lines, I can remember the brass ideas. This doesn't. This is just, like ink all together swirling. You don't really, the colors are separate, but it's not really like this is a circle of yellow, this is a circle of blue. They're all kind of mixing and mingling. It just becomes very goopy at this point. More of a full atmospheric texture than a series of instruments creating an idea. Granted, it still is a series of instruments creating an idea. I don't feel it that way. It feels like everything's just molding and morphing together. I was kind of hoping we stuck with it. First of all, because I love Phrygian, as I mentioned, but also because it felt strange to come back to everything just kind of being okay. And this takes me to Will. What in the world is this vocal stuff here? I mean, first of all, the chops, right? Just delivering all these notes with such enunciation and speed in that second verse. The funk style scream, phenomenal. But also, he's playing a character here. He's doing something interesting with his vocals that sound nothing like his more proper and pristine vocals he laid down on the first track, something that felt a bit more academic and trained. This feels more like a showman. It's got energy to it. It's got bite. It's got grit. It's very different. I remember, it's been like 2 years too, so my memory's not perfect, and I probably should revisit the Normal album sometime soon. But I remember a lot of the ideas on Normal album. I remember Vampire Cul-de-sac. What was that song called? Anyways, that one caught me off guard because I remember he did a vocal change on the second half of that. And I vaguely remember a couple of different vocal ideas, but for the most part, that album I just kind of have as, Will Wood doing one style of vocal for the majority of it. I could be misremembering that. But I was not expecting Will to drop this vocal style here. I honestly wasn't expecting him to change too much from the intro. I know he has more of a rock style vocal that I think he feels most comfortable in. But this, I don't know. This was wild. And I kind of hope we continue to see more of this. Just Will putting on a clinic of how to do a ton of vocal styles and deliveries while still, absolutely locking into his wonderful singing technique. And I guess, in a sense, acting while performing, which, come to think of it, that's sort of what I was talking about at the end of Self. The idea that when people forget him, he'll be able to be himself again. I wonder if we will see different personas or different characters all across this album as we try to find who Will actually is. And again, maybe not Will himself, but at least the concept of a protagonist. I don't know if this is a concept album. I don't know if this is a personal album for Will, but I think Self introduces this idea of wanting to find who we are, who I am, whoever that happens to be. And if we go through a bunch of different vocal techniques and characters, I think it's really going to sell that idea presented in track 1. Let's hit some lyrics for 2012. It's kind of interesting to see how little is actually said despite how many words are stated. But most of this just talks about someone who couldn't really figure out who they were and had some problems. They talked about being too impatient for outpatient, so maybe they were self-harming, maybe they just were trying to rush a cure in general. Maybe it's not a literal outpatient, but they wanted to fix themselves in a quick way, corner cutting, that kind of idea. There's a lot of elements of spirituality in here, talking about biblical origins, and Tao comes up a couple of times actually. It says that they were originally meant to live a miracle. They call themselves an existential criminal. So there's definitely a lot of elements of trying to figure out who oneself is or where their place in the world is. And that's kind of what all of this is about. We have 4 verses of I don't know who I was. And then we have the chorus, which just repeats over and over. I don't remember who I was. I don't remember 2012. That's the whole chorus. Now, some of the context for this states that Will had gone through an alcohol and drug-filled 2012, and that might be why he literally doesn't remember the year. But the song seems to be primarily focusing on the fact that they were trying to figure out who they were. Now, beyond that, though, I really love the rhyme schemes in here. There's a lot of interline rhyming in order to create something that just kind of rolls off the tongue incredibly well. The first verse says, I was an existential criminal, so innocently cynical, ignorant as fuck but a proud individual, originally meant to live a goddamn miracle, might have been metaphysical, but I think it was medical. We have this AL sound that shows up everywhere, not just at the ends of sentences, but even in the middle of words, originally. We have the adverb version of original, and yet it still fits the rhyme scheme. Verse 2 looks at AL once again, animals, aboriginals, mystical, traditionally, integral, biblical, originals, pitiful, literally. And it's just, I find it to be really well done, but I think verse 3 is my favorite. Let me just read it to you. I think I bought into the comedy and bought a lot of oddity and odyssey I thought to be considered a commodity, and not until anomaly abolished my monotony did I applaud autonomy and modify a lot of me. And I think that last one is the one that really works for me, because we have this 3-syllable idea that focuses around that open O sound, oddity, commodity, monotony, autonomy, and then modify a lot of me. We actually have 3 words there, lots of me, that fits the phrasing, that fits the rhyme. It's very well done, and there's so many rhymes in there. I think the only way I would have been more impressed is if we actually had dual rhyming, which I did check every verse to see if maybe there was a secondary rhyme to them, and I didn't find one. So I think it is just the primary rhyme scheme, but still the vocabulary needed to do this, and then on top of that to make it make sense. I'm impressed by that. I love it. It's just very well done. Now, what all of this has to do with the music, though, I'm a bit less understanding of that. I think this is just a case of music being written and then lyrics being written, not necessarily one informing the other. The idea of I don't remember who I was and I was trying to figure it out doesn't really pair too well thematically with funk rock. I don't see the parallels there. But this also does feel very performative. So maybe that's the angle there. Maybe it could have been any number of performative styles of music, but this definitely feels like something you would be on stage in front of a large audience performing. Not necessarily rock or metal, which are personal, but this feels like a stage tune. something you would play because people want to hear this type of music, not necessarily because it's personal to you. Does that make sense? So to make that and kind of wear this mask of this is the type of music that's being played, but it isn't about me, despite the song definitely being about me, but also being about me not knowing who I am, maybe that's how all of it lines up. Although also I might be just digging really deep on this one and I'm so far off the mark. I don't know. Let's dive into this next one called Cotard's Solution. Interesting to have like sci-fi sounds alongside. Also, this is eerie. Ooh. Dude, Will's chordal movements are always so good. This is the second song where the piano has a fast run, and it's a descent. The second time that rhythm's come up. I think I've heard this song before.
To see how I look,
The piano lining up with the vocals, but also expanding on it. Yeah. This is also the second track in a row that makes extensive use of empty space. Okay, Will. Okay, buddy. I really enjoyed this, actually. I don't know if this is going to be a contentious idea, but I hear a lot of parallels with a few tracks off of My Chemical Romance's Black Parade album, particularly House of Wolves and Mama. And I think most of the parallels are drawn between chordal progressions and vocal delivery. This dude is doing a spot on chaotic Gerard Way exceptionally well. And as I already said, spot on, but whatever. Um, and honestly, I'm here for it. Black Parade's not my favorite My Chem album, but it's got some solid tracks on it. And the two I listed are easily some of my favorites off of it too. So this is an interesting surprise. A bit punkier in its energy, but it still somehow doesn't feel like punk music. Pop punk maybe, but still with the inclusion of expanded instrumentation. We have piano, we have sax. I think I heard trumpet earlier on. We have the reggaeton pattern, drum pattern came back again in his track. It's really interesting to hear some of these overlaps. In fact, as I mentioned, this is the second song in a row to use space. I mean, the last track, 2012, really big. It ended on really big emphasized beats with space in between for instrumentation, or I think in that track was mostly words. Have Will sing some stuff in the middle of the big hits, but we saw that again here. Is that going to be something that continues on? And if so, what does space represent on this album? Why is it used so frequently and always in a chorus? I don't know. It's interesting. And I wish I understood it. Maybe it's just a pattern I'm seeing. Maybe it is simply where Will was at as he was composing these works. Just really enjoyed those ideas. Big moments followed by spacious sections that highlight a single instrument or two instruments sometimes. And it sounds cool. So he liked to add it to his music. Maybe it doesn't have any meaning past that. But I don't know, man. Will always makes me think about stuff. Makes me dive in as what's the purpose of this? And that is a pattern I'm seeing form. Self is a bookend track. I don't see it having too many parallels with anything else yet, aside from introducing the two core instruments. I'm going to assume Ish is going to be similar. Probably vocals with piano accompaniment and not much that lines up with the rest of the album. Maybe some lyrical things, but beyond that, Self and Ish are bookends to tracks 2 through 7, which are the core of the album, and that's where most of the parallels are going to be seen. Now, on this track in particular, this is chaotic. I mean, 2012 was certainly intense, but I could keep up with it, and I think more importantly, I could understand what Will was singing. Now, I listened to Fry Screams on my own time. I think Will's doing a great Fry Scream here, honestly, but I can't understand what he's saying. There's not really a lot of enunciation in it, and I think that's what really makes it feel frantic. He's getting the compression to get the scream sound down, but he's not really focusing too much on particulars of it, of really enunciating words and syllables in order for them to be heard through the distortion. He's just kind of slurring his stuff together and screaming them, and he's ah, and it comes out fast and a lacking of a type of discipline, which I do think is purposeful. It's much like what we heard on the last track, a character being portrayed here. This is all purposeful, but it's being done to create at least what to me feels like a frantic energy. And the scream only exacerbates that feeling of maybe not necessarily corner cutting, but not really caring about fundamentals, so to speak, and just kind of going ham on it in whatever way that ends up coming through. And the music kind of pairs with that as well. Generally, our rhythm section, piano, bass, and drums, they're locked in. They're doing things so well together. The groove comes through all three of these. The bass and the piano are doing an excellent job at laying down the harmonic elements. There's some fun components where they're all getting to sort of do their own thing. The piano plays with the vocals while also doing its own like ornamental things between vocal lines. The bass has its walking bass line. The drums have their little fills and little ornamental rhythms here and there. So they're all unique, well locked together to be this foundation for the track. But everything else is just it. When I hear the sax come in, it's not really trying to work well with anyone else. It's just existing. It is doing some cool sax stuff. It is, of course, in time with the band. It is, of course, in tune and in harmony with the band. Yes, it's not noise or avant-garde or anything like that. But it's not necessarily here to make friends. It is here to be the star of that moment. And that's kind of how I feel about all of the extra layers that come in. And I think that's what makes it feel so chaotic, is that there are so many unique ideas all existing simultaneously. It's only due to the pristine production going on here that allows it all to make sense and not feel like a cluttered mess. And honestly, I didn't even think about this for track 2, but the production on that track is also immaculate. Great space in everything. Each instrument has its own place. Nothing really overlaps. It doesn't feel cluttered, but it doesn't feel spacious either. It doesn't feel like we're on a very large stage and there's so much room between the instruments. It feels like they're all right on top of each other. It feels like a cluster of instruments. It's just that we can make everything out. It is a type of, like, there's clarity to it despite also being rugged. Is that coming across right? I enjoy it. It feels like a type of controlled chaos. And this song really took it to the next level above what 2012 is already kind of teetering towards. The last thing I want to bring up here, more of an observation, because again, I don't have something to read from it yet. But both 2012 and Cotard's Solution feature long piano runs. A series of notes arpeggiating through a chord. I think Cotard's Solution has the longest one of both tracks. This was a full like 2.5 octaves, I think. But still, neither one of these tracks have any escalating note runs. Both of them feature descents, falling notes. I not once heard rising patterns from pretty much any instrument, but particularly the piano, who consistently gets spotlights for these arpeggiations. Is this going to be a general downward spiral type of album? Are we going to be moving into heavier, more chaotic, darker tones in general? I don't know, but right off the start is making sure that I don't get any wrong ideas that this might be a positive Well, I mean, it is a positive experience. I'm enjoying myself. I'm dancing through these tracks. This is fun. But the lyrics for the past two haven't necessarily been positive, and I think that's where the piano runs are coming into play, ensuring that things feel a bit falling, descending. And, also I talked about the beginning of this track feeling a bit eerie and unsettling too, focusing a bit more on the darker side of things that we kind of touched on in the bridge of 2012, but really leaned into here. I wonder if we're going to continue on with this pattern of heading towards more and more darker tracks. We really only have 4 more standard songs ahead of us, and the next 2 are on the shorter side, so I guess we'll see where they take us. Dang, there's really only 6 tracks here, because I'm assuming Ish is going to be like Self, so simple piano line, vocal melody on top, 6 songs. It's almost like an EP that just barely got pushed into LP territory because of its intro and outro. Because 33 minutes, yeah, without Self and Ish, that's sub 30. I'd put that in EP range, and 6 tracks is definitely EP range. Dang, this is just a short album. I'm probably gonna have to, as soon as the video's over, play it again. It's gonna go by in a flash. Let me hit some lyrics for Cotard's Solution. I'm totally lost on this one. Okay, so Cotard's, where is this? Cotard's syndrome. It's a mental disorder that causes people to have delusions that they are dead. So we have Cotard's Solution in this title. What would the solution to this be? I guess if we go by the pre-chorus and chorus, it says, I wished I were dead. I don't wish I were dead, but somebody's gotta go. I want to make my murder look like a suicide. So maybe the solution to this syndrome is to die. If you feel like you're dead and you die and you are dead, well, nothing changes. And if you do die, well, I guess nothing changes because you thought you were dead anyways. And is that what the song is about then? I don't know, because that kind of works with the pre-chorus and chorus, but the verses are wild. We have the intro stanza. What if the wind caught up with me and started to change when I did? Would I blow out like a light or like a kite fly away? What if the fear of darkness gave way to the fear of color? Would you live in black and white or rest your eyes through the day? So this idea of what if change were upon me? Would it diminish me or elevate me? Would it blow out my light, or like a kite, would I fly away? The refrain then says, if dreams can come true, what does that say about nightmares? Well, nightmares are dreams. Can they come true as well? The first verse. Cry my name, remind my brain of my identity. I'm not gonna listen, I'm not my volition, I'm na free will. Am I to blame for riding this train right by my destiny? Prove I can crack a loose from the track. Na free will. I'm not too sure what this has to do with Cotard's syndrome or even the chorus at all. Unless it's more of taking the idea of believing you're dead, but not literally. What if you believe your life is already over? Instead of chasing your destiny, you decide to fly right by it. You just kind of live your life loose, without direction. It's kind of seeing where life takes you. That could, living life by the seat of your pants, could line up with the idea of the wind finally catching up to you. the winds of change, even. What will you do then? What will the wind do for you? But then all of this does end up pointing towards the chorus. I want to make my murder look like a suicide, but they'll all know that the body's mine. I don't understand that part. I don't see how that works with the verses at all. The verse 2, divide by 1 and you'll find I'm one less than the one I was. So how many people am I now that I keep them in my memory? Still, I check in the mirror to see how I look, and I look different in different ways. Who's looking back? You do the math. That's not me. Yeah, if we go back to the idea of self, right? And what we saw at the end of 2012, I think it was, about people remembering someone who isn't me. Maybe this is a large album about the different masks that Will wears. Maybe not necessarily, mental health masks. Maybe it's just something as simple as being a different person around different people, code switching. He never really gets to be who he is because he's always in the vicinity of someone else. Maybe it's just about him not enjoying who he is at this moment, the decisions he's made, and wanting to change them, to kill his former self and become someone new. Coming off of 2012, which, if the context is accurate on that, is a song documenting his heavy drug use for a year, maybe he wants to ditch that mask. Maybe he wants to ditch masks altogether. This is where the killing the self comes in, not necessarily the self, but suicide of a self, murdering one part of who you are. Not necessarily a personality of yours, but a component of yourself. Wanting to remove something that you don't feel fits with the direction you want to take yourself in. New year, new you. Sometimes that means getting rid of an old you. Maybe that's what this track is about then. But I really feel like I'm grasping at straws there. It's tough for me to pair all of it together into a nice cohesive totality. I don't know what I was going to say there, but I tried to stick that landing. It's bits and pieces that draw me to that conclusion, not several stanzas as a whole. So, and once again, pairing this back to the music, I don't know, dude. This music is just wild and chaotic and frantic, and I honestly thought it was going to be about time running out, in a sense. Having to make a decision and not enough time to do that, or feeling pressured to make a decision, or something along those lines. And no, this song seems pretty set. I mean, the chorus states, I want to make my murder look like a suicide here. There's no indecision at all. So what I got out of the music doesn't really lean into what I think I'm getting out of the lyrics. But you know what? I got an ace up my sleeve. All you phenomenal Will Wood fans, I know that this probably isn't going to be the only track that throws me for a loop lyrically, and y'all are going to have my back and give me some extra context and your own perspectives on these things. Please, y'all, help me out. Put some stuff in the comments. I'm a bit lost on this one. I think I'm in the right direction, but I don't know. We're going to move forward, though, to this is a very long title. Mr. Capgras encounters a second-hand vanity, tulpomancer's prosopagnosis pareidolia as direct result of trauma to fusiform gyrus. There is a colon in there for a title, subtitle. There is a slash in there for alternate title. And there's also part of that in parentheses as alternate title. So what? Yeah. Let's find out what's going on.
You're trying to replace yourself. 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 Calvin in the back from a reckoning, tucking in your black skin, sagging like a skeleton, levitating off the ground. He's a no limit wearing no face.
Oh, the triplet burst.
Identities, remedies, or enemies, the middle gives your memories shattered at what they found when they stripped away the grace. You learn to your biography, I'm who I ought to be, and that's God's of me. So like
A little bit of klezmer tossed in here, no? Boom, 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 boom. A descending pattern once again. Okay, so we were folk punk and now we are electronic? Oh, no.
In your head and fed up on your memoirs, still the same rules apply. From the birthday to the morning. Why you feel and what you do, honestly's really you, and it's nothing wise. So my God, what's wrong with you? And I'm still asking who that is. You never take me alive, baby. You never take me alive. You never take me, you never take me. You better pray that I die. You never take me alive, baby. You never take me alive. You never take me, you never take me. I know you never gonna find. Somebody gonna make yourself. Somebody gonna make yourself. Somebody gonna make yourself. Somebody gonna make yourself.
Ooh, nice little bend there. We have some sort of shaker instrument over here. And now we return to... Oh, we're gonna stick with it. There's the return. Okay. So that's interesting. A little bit of folk punk, a little bit of klezmer. We definitely go heavy on the klezmer, bringing in some melodic runs that wouldn't feel out of place in some Turkish folk music. But it still has the party vibe. So this is 3 tracks in a row that feel like a chaotic party. A bunch of people just having a blast. In fact, okay, y'all hang with me for a second here. Tracks 2, 3, and 4 have had quite a bit of background vocal parts, whether it's some sort of call and response or just harmonized gang vocals or just extra stuff on the sides that is the instrumentation, sure, but also vocal work. Will Never Feels Alone. Now, I kind of attributed this specifically in 2012 to the idea of, that was the party song. Yeah, so this idea that, he's around a lot of people And knowing after the lyrics too that there's this, drug binge thing going on, probably very much a party time for him. But I didn't really bring this up too much in Cotard's solution, although knowing that it is about killing off, or at least I perceive it's about killing off a part of yourself, hopefully to make room for improved parts of yourself to join in, there's definitely this element of not being alone. And we see that very heavily in verse 2 about how there's still so many parts of him. So once again, not alone. This track, haven't read the lyrics yet, but musically feels like a party, lots of voices, lots of ideas going off. But also, if we bring it back to self, this is solo vocals and solo piano, but there's still voices. Now, granted, it sounds like he's performing at maybe a higher class event. He is the music, the entertainment, not necessarily something people have come to pay to watch, but is part of the ambiance of the event. Everyone's having their own conversations. You can hear it in the pauses between vocal lines, but he's still surrounded by people. We are 4 for 4 for party atmospheres. Granted, tracks 2, 3, and 4 are more of a traditional party, and track 1 is more of a high class party, but still party nonetheless. I find that to be really interesting. Also, the album title, Selfish. I've been trying to figure this out. Oh, okay. Got a little dizzy. I'm thinking too much about this album. No, but it's self-ish, not really like the self. Close, but not. Oh, that was going to be a terrible. Anyways, you get the idea of it, right? Ish is adjacent to. If you have a chair and it's kind of like an off purple, it's purplish. Well, this is self-ish, not really an exploration of the self, but an exploration of something close enough to being described as the self. Also, look at this album art here. We have somebody cross-legged with 4 arms, lots of colors and stuff. Is a very colorful person here existing outside of Earth. I would definitely say there's a spiritual edge to the album art. We also have all of the, you can't really see it too clearly here, but on the outside of the main square, there are all of these flower patterns, so many different vibrant colors that also kind of comes off a bit psychedelic adjacent. Though I don't necessarily think it needs to be psychedelic adjacent. There's certainly other elements, other ideas that you can pair with that. But that's one of the first things that come to mind, particularly because of this out-of-planet experience happening. I also find it interesting that there is scissors in the bottom right and a dotted line indicating where the scissors should cut, but it also happens to go directly through the middle of Earth, as if this is Earth's rotation around the self. Bit of a self-centeredness going on here, which lines up with the wordplay of self-ish being selfish, feeling like you're the center of everyone's attention, which I wonder how much of that I've been missing because I haven't even thought about that at all during this entire analysis. To be completely fair, we are at least 3 tracks in that have been about, presumably, will. This is an album that is me, 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 I. Look what I've gone through. Look what I'm doing. Look what I'm going through. I think for some artists, their work is always going to be selfish. And this is a bit of reflection on that. Well, technically, for most artists, their work is going to reflect themselves. There is a selfish component to all art. It is you putting your experiences to an art form to share with others. Art in general, I suppose, is selfish. but particularly lyrics and music, especially when your lyrics are about you, what you have done, what you are going through, and in some cases, even having ego based music. There's plenty of music out there about how great I am. Listen to me sing about everything I've accomplished. Listen to me sing about how small you are, especially when it comes to stuff like diss tracks. Anytime that you got to buff yourself up in order to point out how much bigger you are than someone else. So, yeah, I think in most cases, art is going to be selfish, but even in particular, if all of your music is quite literally about you and your experience, definitely selfish in a regard. Vulnerability comes from that as well too, and that's kind of a dangerous and scary thing to put out there, to expose one's heart and shortcomings to a larger audience, which is certainly where Will sits, I think. Is it still entertainment? Absolutely. Does that diminish how self-centered this album has been, how vulnerable this album has been? No, I don't think it does. Now, as for this track in particular, though, I don't know that I have anything to add to it that I haven't stated about either really of the past two tracks. All of these have been sort of in the same vein, something a little punky, something a little rocky, something a bit jazzy. Well, no, I suppose jazzy isn't consistent. Punky and rocky, though, for sure, with with a little twist. Each of these tracks has had their own sound. Track 2 was funky. Track 3 was, what was track 3? Track 3 had the Phrygian bit, and track 4 here is very klezmer. Similar foundations. That's interesting too, because they also have the core foundation of vocals and piano. That's consistent too. So we have the baseline foundation, and then we have a core foundation on that, and then we have the little unique parts that make all of the tracks separate, distinct, in my mind at least. But once again, we have Will putting on a voice, playing a character, doing some really fun stuff. We have backup vocals all over the place, doing all sorts of chaotic ideas, counterpoint, call and response, rounds, harmonies. There's so many layers in this track. And once again, we have Will just delivering a lot of ideas all at once, really quickly, and a bouncy, dancey beat underneath, primarily driven by bass, drums, and piano. The big change here, though, is the klezmer side of things, and we do get a hyper focus of that in the bridge. We get a nice instrumental led dance section. I liked it. It was a nice expansion of the already quasi-klezmer ideas present in the verse and chorus. And it did go on for a bit longer than I expected. I really, much early on, I called out, and a return to, and I thought we were going to come back to the chorus to wrap things up, and we didn't. We stuck with it for quite a bit longer, and I enjoyed that. I thought the instrumental break there was nice. I enjoyed the melody coming off of that. But at the end of the day, I mean, these three tracks are all very similar in vibe, in energy, in emotion. I mean, in a sense, this whole idea of 2012 kind of pushes further, whereas that was kind of fun despite depicting something dark and heavy. We also saw that with track 3 about trying to kill off a part of you because you feel it's dead and you need to move on and find something to replace it. And that's kind of heavy. The idea of growth, of change, and of fear of change too, which we saw in the opening verse of that. And yet the song is fun and bouncy and dancy. So I'm expecting a rather heavy track here as well, lyrically, while musically it is on the fun, bouncy, poppy side of things. Let's dive into some lyrics, see what's going on there. Holy cannoli, dude, this title So we have Mr. Capgras encounters a secondhand vanity. Secondhand vanity is going to come up in a moment, but this track is about an imposter feeling within oneself and unable to recognize who you are kind of idea. The Capgras delusion is named after the psychiatrist Joseph Capgras, refers to the delusion that a friend, spouse, or family member has been replaced with an identical imposter. So this idea that someone close to you is not who they say they are. Now, a tulpamancer is someone who practices creating autonomous consciousnesses in the mind. So, personas who do what they want. Once again, an idea of someone who is but isn't, tying into the idea of the imposter delusion. Prosopagnosis is face blindness, an inability to recognize faces. Pareidolia is a tendency for the human mind to see faces in inanimate objects. I didn't know that had a name, but I did know that humans are kind of predisposed to see faces in all sorts of things. And fusiform gyrus is a region of the brain linked to face recognition. We have all of this in here. Tulpamancers, prosopagnosia, pareidolia, direct result of trauma to the fusiform gyrus. So there's trauma to the gyrus, which means that they can't recognize faces. And all of this has to do with seeing a face and not recognizing it because it's an imposter, because your brain has had issues with it, because it's an implanted persona in the mind. I thought this was just a bunch of random stuff. I should have known better given it's Will Wood. This song is about all of that, which actually ties really nicely to Cotard's Solution, a song about getting rid of a part of yourself. This song says, you're trying to replace me over and over and over again. This is in the post-chorus. This is in the intro. This was at the outro. You're trying to replace yourself. Trying to get rid of something that you are and put something else that you are or might not be in there too. Now, the verses, as usual, are dense and difficult to get through, although this time around we have a pretty cool rhyme scheme, at least in the first verse, carving out a fact from a reckoning, beckoning you back, skin sagging off its skeleton. That's just, it feels great to say, dude. This guy just, when he wants to, he's got a way with syllables, and I love it. Anyway, it says, levitating off the ground is another man wearing your face. All of the other false identities and remedies are enemies to mitigate your memories, shuddering at what they found when they stripped away the grace. So it basically says that you see someone levitating off the ground. He's wearing your face, but you don't recognize him. There's so many other identities wrapped up between you and him, and it's a way of saving yourself or creating enemies or basically ways to just what's the word I want? Persevere, maybe, in order to just get through life. You're creating all of these personalities and identities just to make it through. So sometimes they're your remedies, sometimes they're your enemies, sometimes they mitigate your memories, things you don't want to remember. You can just place in another identity. It says you'll shudder at what you find when all of this is stripped away. Now, I really like this part of the pre-chorus. It says eulogy or biography. A eulogy is what you say for someone else. A biology is what you say about yourself. And it seems to indicate that our narrator doesn't know what way they should describe what they're going to say. It says, I am who I ought to be, and that is God to me. So I'm the most important person in my life. But my God, what is wrong with me? If who I want to be might be, and then just the never, 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 which I love that idea. It's just a really fun a musical device to use in here, and reminds me a lot of early System of a Down, using really fun sounds and repetition in order to create basically jarring transitions, and to draw towards these fun ideas while exploring darker concepts. It says, "You'll never take me alive." And that is the entirety of the chorus. You'll never take me alive. And then, of course, somebody to replace yourself is the post chorus. So it's generally this idea of trying to remove a part of yourself with something that you recognize. There's so much within you that you don't. It's one of those times when, metaphorically, or I guess figuratively, you see this in film and books, novels often, where somebody looks in the mirror and just doesn't recognize who they are anymore. Usually this comes with like a change of hair. Maybe they're going to shave their head so that they can visually change themselves to feel like it's them and their body again. Well, that's what's happening here. They don't recognize who they are. They don't recognize much of who they are. Even looking inside, all they see are faces that aren't theirs. And they're ready to get rid of it. But the thing is, these aren't just other pieces or other parts. It's still themselves. You're trying to replace yourself. This is all a part of you. This is a part of your past. You need to reconcile with it. You can't just ditch it. You do need to grow from it, but simply cutting it out isn't going to be the way about it. And I think that's what most of this track is going on about. But I also love how so much of it is in the second person. You'll never take me alive. You're trying to replace yourself. I guess that's about it. There's only one time there's an I, and that's in the pre-chorus when it says, "I am who I ought to be." Everything else is the word you. And so once again, we have a track that I don't really have much to pair to the music. I don't feel anything about identity, or especially conflicting identity within here, or want to get away from something or to remove a part of oneself. I don't read anything of that in the music. The music still feels fun and dancey to me, very party-esque. And I suppose this is just going to be the way the album is. We are at the halfway point, both track-wise and time-wise, and with only 3, what I'm going to assume are full-size tracks in here that aren't just vocals and piano, I don't think we're going to deviate much from that. I think that's the point of this song, is the whirlwind of life, moving from high-energy event to high-energy event, constantly trying to reach a peak of happiness while internally self-destructing. And it's this clashing idea of the projection of the self as this happy-go-lucky party guy who's just having fun all the time, and the deterioration of the self inside, the mental health slowly decaying but not being allowed to show that. I really think that's what's being captured through a lot of these tracks, is a destruction of the interior, and that's why the music very rarely fails to capture that feeling. It's purposefully designed not to. All of these are designed to feel like being surrounded by people, while lyrically we are exploring the most vulnerable, isolated ideas possible. How to fix what's inside. I really hope that's what's intended here, because I love that read, and I think it's phenomenal to see the separation of music and lyric from that thematic angle. And if anybody has like an interview with Will Wood where he has stated, "This is exactly what I was aiming for in Selfish," let me know, because and I'd be over the moon about that, because I really like knowing that, my skills at understanding and analyzing music are good. People like getting pats on the back. Who knew? But also, I really love that read of it too, and I'd love for that to be the official one. Although I'm also interested if it isn't, what has Will said is the man, that sounded weird to say, but I think that was grammatically correct. What has Will said is the intended idea behind pairing these musical concepts with these lyrical ones. And next up, we have the song with 5 names, aka Soapbox Tau, aka Checkmate Atheist, aka Neo Space Government, open parentheses, aka You Can Never Know, close parentheses. Will Wood is really trying his best to create a pop punk album as far as these titles are concerned. Let's dive into this one, see what's going on. Kind of spacey. Oh, is that a little bit of yeah, Spanish. The descent into grit, just to expand it back out into the clean sounds. The piano just dropping the 16th notes. Space with really big accent points. I love the dual horns here, dancing around the vocals and the glockenspiel too. Oh, the tongue trill was a nice touch. Also, the vocals jumping off of the 16th note piano stuff. A short-lived solo, but still screaming behind it. Also, clapping is incredibly common on this album. The key change into this finale was clean. That was seriously impressive. I love how the 16th notes on the piano, just that dun 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 dun, it presents this driving energy through a majority of this track. It feels like this forward momentum that you just can't stop. It is consistent, it is constant, and it's so much faster than anything else. But it actually acts as some foreshadowing. The vocals are going to play that exact same or sing that exact same line, but with words during the chorus, post chorus. I'm not sure. It gets a little muddy for me as far as the structure of this track goes. I believe it is something along the lines of like a verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, but there's also like pre choruses and post choruses and refrains in there that kind of muddy it up a little bit. And I guess that's a really good thing to bring up here too, is a lot of this album is based on that very traditional structure, the A, B, C, B. Two groups of a verse chorus, followed by a bridge to change things up, and a return back to the hook, back to the chorus. But there's always ways to alter that. There's refrains, there's intros, there's outros, there's post choruses, pre choruses, post verses. There's ways to keep this general structure similar to make all of the tracks feel familiar in a sense. You know that you're going to get to hear the chorus 3 times on every single one of these songs, but you don't always know the exact path we're going to take through it. And occasionally, even, we will have variations to the verses too, where verse 1 and verse 2 will be 70% similar, but 30% different. Maybe something will be removed, something will be added, maybe the melody is going to be adjusted a little bit, maybe there's going to be a new instrument in here. Just ways to keep the songs fresh, which honestly this next track's going to be the longest at 5:51. That's a short song right there. The shortest traditional track on here is 3:44. We have a 4:04 in there. I mean, these are short songs. They really don't have to worry too much about feeling too stagnant. Even if they just did one thing, the runtime is short enough that it's not really going to be too big of an issue, but we'll make sure that you're never left for a moment without having some sort of dopamine hit, a new instrument popping in, something shiny over off in the corner, a new melody, a new ornamental idea, vocal harmonies on the sides. There's always something happening. Even the drummer will shift up their drum style from part to part in order to keep things interesting. And if none of the instruments are keen on changing up what they're doing, will absolutely throw in a new vocal style and start screaming, or get something a bit more large and bravado, or something a bit more directed and forward. And he's always changing things up. It's impossible for this music to get boring because on so many levels, it is always doing something new. And for this track, which has 5 titles, it makes sense for it to be chaotic, but also this is just the way that Will writes music, at least on this album. All of these tracks are consistently evolving, keeping a similar framework, a blueprint of similarity between all of them. That's the baseline movement, having verses and choruses and bridges that finalize into a chorus and maybe an outro, but doing all sorts of wild stuff alongside that general blueprint in order to make sure that nothing ever stagnates. None of this album is allowed to sit still, which actually brings up something really interesting here. Self, the opening track, kind of one note. It doesn't do a lot. Your piano plays harmony on left hand and plays melody on right hand, and the melody is duplicated on the vocals, and that's the whole song. We don't get a variety of vocal styles or inflections. We don't get a ton of instruments, and we just have a series of verses. We don't even have a verse chorus structure to create a pendulum to swing between. We get one idea over and over and over. It is the most restrained track. As an intro, that makes sense. A lot of intro tracks are designed to showcase a small flavor of what the album will be. Maybe not necessarily sonically, but certainly musically. Get a little taste of what the composition will be like. But we don't even get that here. This may be that Self is what is presented to the audience. A prim, pristine, academic. Actually, I don't know if he's academically trained. He definitely has a flair for theatrics, though, which feels like, if nothing else, he comes from musical theater, even if maybe his compositional side is self taught. He has some sort of academic element to him. And that's the side he seems to be presenting on this album. Everything within Self and Ish is all the turmoil within. It would not surprise me then if Ish ends up finishing up what we saw at the beginning of this album with Self, a return back from the inside to the exterior to see this prim, proper pianist in front of a high-class party just playing in very calm and alluring styles, not drawing too much attention to himself, simply being part of the ambiance of this event. That would actually be pretty cool. I guess, how many hypotheses have I made about what Ish is going to be? That doesn't happen very often, where I'm always thinking about the ending, but this is like a good thriller film where I keep getting little hints. Are they red herrings? Are they foreshadowing? What's this album trying to say ultimately? But I think it's been pretty consistent that aside from Self, it's been about inner turmoil, and Self is the most normal track. Not a lot of turmoil and not really introspective too much either. Very external. Now, this song brought back actually every track's been doing it but for heavy emphasized notes with space between them. Bump, 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 and then usually some sort of melody or like vocal line between the accents, stuff like that. I think it's interesting that we didn't hear too much of that in track 4, and I wonder if that's because it wasn't so much about an isolation of the self, but a conversation between two parts of the self. Less room to put the spotlight on you to stop everything and focus on what you're saying. More of a conversational, maybe a frictional element, an argument. Regardless, I do like how it's brought back here. It continues to provide a bit of glue for the album and is another technique that keeps the album feeling cohesive and comprehensive while still exploring its own ideas here. Once again, we also have a flurry of instruments and sounds and voices, and it's very energetic and forward driving. And I was talking about earlier, just this constant piano stuff, the 16th note, constant movement. There's just no time to take any breaks on this one at all. You just have to keep going and roll with it, and who cares if the song starts to crash and collide. You just gotta see where it takes you. There's no time to like stop and think about anything. That's what the song feels like to me. Anyways, that is until we hit the solo, the bridge. A lot of these bridges have been instrumental. It's the moment where the vocals kind of take a back seat. Not all of the time, but consistently enough. We had the klezmer moment in track 3. We had the saxophone solo in track 2. Here we have an electric guitar solo. Short-lived and a bit, I guess I'd call it iterative. I don't know that it said anything specific to me. It just felt like a bluesy kind of rock solo. Not too different from what I've heard many times over. But some of this may also be that by the time I started to understand what it was trying to say, we moved out of it. As if the vocalist said, well, that's enough of that. Let's put the spotlight back on me. And I mean, that seems to be rather accurate as far as the selfish elements to this album. But I also kind of wish we would have spent more time with it, maybe given it a full 16 or 32 bar treatment like we did with the klezmer moment in track 3. I also noticed, though, that It's not really an instrumental part, is it? Behind this guitar solo is screaming. I don't know if words are being said. I didn't pick up on syllables or phrases, but I did hear the human voice just screaming over and over until the guitar solo stopped. If that isn't a stop everything and put the spotlight back on me, what are you doing listening to this guitarist? I don't know what is, because that seems exactly how I interpret that moment. A way of throwing a temper tantrum or just being loud and noisy and abrasive, being self-centered. All right, let's hit some lyrics. All right, here we have a combination of the questioning of what is existence mixed in with some general comedic flow. At one point, asking what is, what is not, what is what? What's up, party people? I love that. It takes something that is incredibly profound, asking what is reality, what is existence, what are we as humans? The very beginning of the track says, why? I can't see that I am the me that I was born into, and what's the source of you in your head? This idea of saying, who even are we? How did we become we? What is even we? What am I? What am you? What am you? What are you? What are you? But pairing that with almost a nonchalant shift away from those deep questions for something a bit more comical while still retaining the general vibe. It's kind of wild how it dances between profound and irreverent so seamlessly. I'm not too sure about the chorus, though. It says you can break a shovel when you break new ground. You got to dig up when you dig deep down. You should know better than that by now. It's not profound to know that you could break a shovel when you break new ground. That's where the repeat comes from. So digging deep would be, philosophical depth here, trying to find the profound elements of the question. What are we? Who am I? What is humanity? What is the point of life? And really having to get past that surface level element. But the idea of break a shovel when you break new ground. Maybe this is just to stick with the metaphor of digging deep. You need a shovel to dig. But also it says you dig dirt up when you dig deep down. And the idea of slinging dirt out of the hole up above you, what is that supposed to represent? It's obviously focusing on an opposite here, that in order to dig down, you have to get rid of something down here to be there. It's a replacement technique. You're replacing the dirt with space so that you can fill that space. Is that what's purposefully being spoken of here? I'm not entirely sure. But I do feel this track is primarily focused on existentialism in general, and it just, comically enough, kind of touches the surface of it, alludes to it, and then dances away, never quite getting to any answers, never suggesting anything, just saying, wow, existence is kind of wild, huh? And not getting deeper than that. Which may be a point of it. Maybe that's the idea of the profound. What is, what is not, what is what? Immediately moving into the pointless. What's up, party people? Maybe that's the whole point of this, is that as soon as Our narrator is forced to dig deeper to find out who they are, what their life means. They decide it's not worth getting that far. That the surface level is all that they really need right now. They don't want to put the work in to have self-discovery. I don't know how to pair this back to my read of the solo section, though. I do want to take a moment to look at the rhyme scheme of this. I feel like this is just something I'm going to keep doing because it continues to be excellent. Verse 1 says, and yet you believe it's true, well you do, like you knew anything ever, never trust in yourself or anyone else. We've always been wrong. We built these walls strong, even I might define, won't deny that I'm trying, while my eyes do defy and belie, quiet liars. As I say what I say anyway, I may be saying it, but I've been wrong before. And what I love about this is that in the past, we have seen stanzas focus on a single rhyme scheme, and this one seems to, every couple of lines, change to a different sound. And it ends up working really well. It feels fluid because of all of this, usually pairing the changing ideas back to back. So you'll have a consistent sound here, and then this syllable will be next to this syllable, which is our new rhyming one. And we'll pair that through a couple of words. And the next one will have the two sounds next to each other. And this next one is where we continue on. It's, once again, it's not just the rhyming. It's not just the consistency of it. It's also the fact that it still makes sense. This is just really good lyricism. And I love that. 2 primary songs to go. Interestingly, this one is called Hand Me My Shovel, I'm Going In, which, I mean, the chorus here is you can break a shovel when you break new ground, you dig dirt up when you dig deep down. And this one is Hand Me My Shovel, I'm Going In. Maybe this song was supposed to be surface level because track 6 is where we will actually dig in deep. Let's dive in. Ooh, oh, ooh.
My heart was stolen by a blind pickpocket in the deep city streets in the summer of 2012, and I never even saw her face. My dreams were shattered like a stained glass window. Jesus in pieces, I believe I threw a brick right through him, but my memory cannot be saved. It just seems unlikely that it's me who was to blame.
Why did we just randomly shift to a Western sound? Such a fun track here, man. All of these songs have been fun.
My soul was crushed like a tall boy underneath the boots and the curb, and I'm still picking up my molars and putting them back in my face. My name was soiled by a last call spill with the blackwash wheel, and the blackout killed me sober, running back from a fall from grace. Take the road on higher ground and tell me don't love you down, you'll fall and bring you back. But that just reminds me how there's more to be found beneath the black. This is not enough, but this is not enough.
not have fun with this album.
This is not enough. This is not enough to breathe yet. No, I need to hit the bottom. Gotta get to the bottom of this. Gotta get to the bottom of this.
Gotta get to the bottom of this. Okay.
Bottom of this.
I'm excited to hit the lyrics on this one.
But a willow barrel empty. To go drink or pour it out. When too much is not enough, there's plenty. More where that came from my round. Looking up, we see the point of entry.
Okay, the halftime and the accelerando. Cliche, but it's very effective. I'm digging this. How fast are we gonna get? I think we're over the original tempo at this point. We're definitely over the original tempo. The frantic element pushing towards this bottoming out. Manic depressive, anyone? Oh, the piano line. Going for the blues, okay. Was that a cannon? I think it was a cannon. I heard, like, after the big bang, it was like dust settling down, crashing back into the ground. Well, so a Western. And, you know, kind of fits too, the blues. Can we talk a moment, though, about Will and his singing, his voice? I mean, it's been pretty stellar. This entire album, the flexibility of it, the acrobatics that he shifts between all of these different styles. But I felt like in this track, we really got to hear, particularly closer to the beginning of it, some less theatrical and more chops, particularly range, the way that he can quickly move between notes. He had these wonderful runs. And it's just a general display of skill at the beginning of this track, not of portraying characters, but traditional singing skills. And I really like that moment because so much after listening to most of this album, what I keep coming back to is Will being a phenomenal entertainer, a performer of sorts. In fact, has Will ever been on TV or in film? Because someone that I kind of relate Will Wood to in kind of a different direction, though, is Tom Waits. I think both of them have specific ideas in mind of what their art is supposed to represent, and they present it in a very authentic and raw way. And that there's a lot of variety in both of their works, but they all have like the central heart to what their kind of their musical output is. But there's always this artistic element to it, and they're both on the more I don't know if I would say mainstream side, but palatability. I think both artists generally have more palatable sounds. I know Will has this kind of edgy, punky stuff going on here, and we heard a little bit of that on Normal Album as well. But I also don't find too much of this to have too much of an edge to it. We're not talking about, extreme metal or avant-garde jazz or anything that's really on the fringe of palatability. This isn't something that I think your average pop listener would gravitate to, but I do think that it would not be difficult for them to get into it. Really, the eclecticness of it all and the variety is going to be the biggest hurdle, more so than odd sounds. You can find a lot of the sounds of this album in popular musics. It's just from a bunch of different genres. But Tom Waits has broken into film, and I think it really suits him because while I find his musical output to be artistically sound, to me, he's a performer. He's somebody who embodies his characters and sings like they would, and has specific elements to his vocal component, how he sings that matches what's going on in the music. And the music is usually there for the atmosphere. I haven't really heard anything from Tom Waits that would blow my mind compositionally, but as a work of art, it's always incredibly solid. And Will Wood is kind of in that same area. A lot of iterative ideas, playing around with tropes. There's nothing in this album so far that I've heard that's like, wow, I've never heard that in music before. It's just completely breaking the mold. No, a lot of this stuff is pretty typical. When the Western part came on, that sounded like a pretty typical Western chord progression. The vocals he used with it, the slurring the vocals at the end and putting a little bit of grit and rasp into the vocals. Yeah, dude, this is what, drunken, melancholic Western, bluesy Western music is all about. He is absolutely using the tropes as a shortcut to get me and all listeners to quickly understand what each of these moments are supposed to be portraying. So musically, it isn't wildly inventive, but what is interesting, what does work across this entire album is the commitment to the bit. It's all of the vocal ideas, it's the performance of it, it's the theatrics. That's why I wonder if Will Wood's ever done film, if it's even something he's interested in. Because honestly, I could see it. Will Wood fans, what do you think? Do you agree with me here, or are you like, nah, dude, you should just stick with music? That's his home. Anyway, I forgot how I got on this topic. Anyways, I could see this dude in film. I think he would be phenomenal. He's definitely a strong performer. Oh, this is how I got into it, because I was using this to contrast what we were hearing at the beginning, more of a traditional vocal chops, listening to his, the control of the voice and pitch, the runs going on, quick movement between notes, just really solid singing that we haven't really seen too much of in this album because it is more theatric, more performative. And it's really nice to see that other side. And, we heard a bit of it in track one. I've just kind of forgotten about it. everything in here has been a fever dream of voices that, I don't forget that Will can sing, but I kind of forgot that he does. Like proper singing, academic singing. So yeah, that was supposed to be a segment to praise his vocals, and instead I went on a tangent about how he's like Tom Waits. Because they hold it together, man. We've only got 2 songs left. Let's stay on track with stuff. So a Western, not entirely fully country music though. And I think that's what I like about it. It has bluesy elements, it has that Western edge to it, but a majority of this track kind of pairs that with the rockier sounds. In fact, I don't know how I'm bringing My Chemical Romance back up, but the track from their second album, 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge, there's a track on there called You Don't Know What They Do to Guys Like Us in Prison, or Guys Like Me in Prison, something like that. And honestly, that mixing of like punkier, rockier ideas with like this bluesy Western sound is what I'm hearing here as well. And I'm really enjoying this album. I could see myself coming back to this casually too, because it is fun. It's very short and sweet. But a lot of it does remind me of My Chem, and the best parts all smashed together without the darker emo sections. Just kind of focusing on more of their alt rock sounds and bringing in other styles of music into that. I can't wait to hear what Dr. Sunshine is Dead sounds like, because I think that's going to be the last new sound. Kind of wrap up this sextet of tracks, this smashing together of rock and other ideas. But I think even right from the start, it absolutely sells this idea, not just of melancholy, which there is a bluesy element to this entire track, but the rugged gunman, the Lone Ranger. This song to me feels like isolation, and I don't even know what it's about yet. Now, granted, if I'm right, the idea of taking a shovel and digging into yourself is a lonely adventure. Only you can discover who you are. But to pair that with a track, if that's exactly where they're going with this, that leads into bluesy, drunken bar singing by the end of this song that feels like someone just went through the worst of times and they have to forget it. They're using alcohol to help with that. Makes me wonder what he found as he started shoveling beneath his own surface. Although, given the other 4 tracks worth of lyrics, we probably are looking at something psychological, self-discovery, and exploration of the self, existentialism, but always with a bit of a negative twist to it. So maybe Will not finding something good after he breaks his own surface, that kind of lines up. But the only way to know is to dive into some lyrics. So let's do that now. Now, I think I incorrectly jumped off of track 5, having the wordplay of a shovel and digging and assuming that this was going to go in that direction, but it isn't. This actually calls back to the second track, 2012. It opens up with the lines, "My heart was stolen by a blind pickpocket in the deep city streets in the summer of 2012, and I never even saw her face." I really like this because he states he never saw her face, but she was described as a blind pickpocket, so she never saw Will's face either. However, given that it's the summer of 2012, I'm going to assume that this was part of his drug and alcohol binge, and he doesn't remember much of this anyways. Even if he had seen her face, he wouldn't have remembered it, but also we have this idea of not recognizing faces, which is similar to track 4. Granted, that was about not recognizing your own face, but still here. We have facial recognition coming up as a recurring theme throughout the album. He mentions that his memory could not be saved, but it seems unlikely that it's him who was to blame. So he doesn't take responsibility for his own actions that led to these events. And the intro into the pre-chorus states, I will bookmark my DSM because I need to remember my place. Now, bookmarking a book to remember your place, but also the wordplay of remembering your place, your station in life. The DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. It documents and provides definitions for all sorts of mental disorders. And so it seems that Will is using this to figure out what is wrong with himself, possibly. The chorus leans into this too. It says, this is not enough to prove it yet. I need to hit the bottom. This can be taken in two ways. One, he might have a hunch about some disorder he has, but he can't prove it. So he needs to keep digging. Digging as in an investigator digs into a case, but also we could be talking about this not being enough to prove that I actually have a problem, so I can keep doing what I'm doing. I don't have an addiction. I can stop when I want. I haven't hit rock bottom yet. The post-chorus simply states, gotta get to the bottom of this, and I'll take you with me. Which seems to state, one, that they have a Watson to their Sherlock Holmes, but also mutual destruction here. He is self-destructing in his life, and he's bringing other people to his rock bottom too. This lines up very well with the idea of being selfish. The album, yeah. The album name. Verse 2 says, my soul was crushed like a tall boy. This is the first time we really start bringing in the alcohol references, which is why I think this whole song is about drinking yourself to rock bottom. Says, my name was soiled by a last call spill with a backwash swill, and the blackout killed me sober on impact from a fall from grace. This idea that who he was, what his name was worth, is completely tarnished here. We get to the bridge. This is where things slow down a little bit. It says, bottle, well, or barrel, all are empty, dug or drank or poured it out. When too much is not enough, there's plenty, more where that came from around. Looking up, we see the point of entry between where we are and where we've been. Looking up, I could say, heaven sent me, hand me my shovel, I'm going in. So he basically says he's been drinking so much and it's all gone now. We've hit pretty low points. All this alcohol wasted and it's still not enough. For whatever had them chasing the bottom of these bottles, they haven't run from it far enough yet. They look up in this metaphorical hole and see where they started digging. They figure they still have some ways left to go. So hand me my shovel, I'm going in. This is really interesting because where is rock bottom? Who decides where rock bottom is? Will says he's going to keep digging. But if you can look up and there's no way you're climbing back up, if the hole is above, if you reach your hands up above your head and you can't touch the edge of the grass that's above you, you're in too deep, buddy. You can't get yourself out here. And you might not have tools to fashion a ladder either. How are you getting out of this without help? You've hit a low point. To me, that's rock bottom. Some people, though, they need to keep falling. They need to keep digging. And so we see the refrain over and over and over. Gotta get to the bottom of this, even if it kills me. And that takes us to the outro, which is the drunken, slurred part of this track, the real bluesy edge with the the bluesy solo going on alongside the vocal lines. This is not enough to prove it yet. I need to hit the bottom. And I really love the double entendre here. The mix of drug use and I guess just substance abuse in general, since this song seems to focus more on alcoholism, but not thinking that you've actually hit a point where you can call it alcoholism. It hasn't completely destroyed your life yet. You got to keep going to prove that you have an alcohol problem. But also bringing back the DSM, trying to prove that you have a mental disorder and continuing to dig into that, trying to reach further into yourself to figure out what's wrong with you. I think that's interesting too, because at a certain point, you just have to come to the conclusion maybe it's not a mental problem. Maybe this is just something that you need to fix. It's not who you are, it's what you allow yourself to do. And for Will to mention at this point, okay, I've dug far enough. Maybe there's nothing in the DSM that says, this is a problem, means that he also needs to take responsibility for this year, take responsibility for these actions, for all this, identity stuff going on where he's hiding these poor, these bad memories or these elements of himself he doesn't want to deal with, hiding them on other identities, of wearing all these masks, of going on this, year-long bender. He needs to take responsibility for all of that. That requires self-reflection, maturity, and growing up. That's much harder to say than I'm going to keep digging till I figure out something external I can't control that's the cause for all of this. And was it this song where he mentioned that? Yeah, it just seems unlikely that it's me who was to blame. His ego is too large for him to take responsibility for this, because it would mean that he was wrong. The actions he chose along this way were not the right ones, and that is damaging to self-image. It's also, interestingly, something on the path to self-actualization, is to realize that you aren't infallible, that you can make mistakes, and that you can improve from them. Doing wrong things, coming to terms with them, accepting the repercussions of those actions and growing from that takes maturity. And it seems that whether this is Will talking about his personal life or just the character he's created for these stories, they're not ready to do that here. And they will dig as far down as they need to go and search at the bottom of as many bottles as they need to find something external to blame, because they literally cannot blame themselves without shattering everything about who they are, a complete destruction of the ego and a need to pick up all the pieces and rebuild their self-image. This is a phenomenal moment in this album. And I'm really glad it's here, and for it to be paired with such obvious tropes of bluesy, Western, drunken sounds, while doing this double entendre wordplay here and actually focusing on real elements of self-actualization, self-image, and mental growth. Yeah, dude, I'm blown away. I've been on board with the album. I've enjoyed it musically. The topics are kind of a bit more surface level than I would have liked, but it's good enough. I think they have enough depth to them, given how fun and dancey the music is. It's not like it's incredibly deep music either. And here's a pivot point for me. It kind of makes me want to go back and check out this album again, not just casually and enjoying it, but also seeing if maybe there's other areas in the lyrics that I've missed double entendres for, because this is head and shoulders above all the other lyrics of this album. And it's kind of, it happens. Sometimes people just land on greatness and it's just one time they do it. but given how much I enjoyed the normal album and how much depth I got out of it, I find it uncharacteristic for this track to be the only one with any sort of lyrical depth to it. So, yeah, I mean, I'll be looking forward to the comments on this video. Absolutely. I know y'all are going to have some excellent insight into this, but I do also look forward to a second listen on my own to see just what I get, just letting it play. Because, you know, stopping it every 5 seconds to talk about what we listen to, it does disrupt the flow of the album, and maybe there's some stuff I would have picked up on if I just listened to the full 30 minutes all the way through as well. It's just, yeah, it's one of the double-edged swords of doing these reactions. Sometimes you can listen to the whole album and get it, and other times you really need to take the time to break it down. You're going to miss details one way or the other. All right, our penultimate song here, Dr. Sunshine is Dead. Okay, so I have heard this song too.
When did I become afraid of the dark? My eyeballs just get too much just to see in the light. The room I'm in is still
I mean, it's also very, it's similar to 2012 too, so maybe that's just what I'm remembering. Another descending line. That was gnarly. Going from all of that weight and layers to this lighter sound, such a fun shift. Oh, jeez. I'm loving this trumpet player, dude. That's an interesting vocal-based sound effect. I think this is our first 5-pulse. Most of this album's been 4/4. Nice to have a 5/4 section though. The harp, just out of nowhere. We haven't had a harp all album. All right, Will. Another slick display. incredibly dramatic, but that's why I love Will. I'm so tempted to run this into Ish. It's kind of elegiac though, isn't it? It's a dark weight to this. I mean, it is called Dr. Sunshine is Dead, so an elegy makes sense, but still? Also, the temporal, I am going to let it roll over, but the temporal elements on that were fantastic. Listening to Will always just behind the beat on those really heavy sections allows his vocal line to have that effect, that weight of almost being too heavy to be on time.
Well, if winter comes and takes my life, will it be the death I had in mind?
This is just self.
Or will I be captured
That's the same melody.
in the ice to preserve the way I died? Well, at 27 will I see that I was born to be the man I'll be. And if I change myself, can I still stay me? Or did I just change my mind? Whoa, I am a point in time and space, and I am the truths that I create. And so when my matter takes its stand, no, it doesn't matter who I am. No, it doesn't matter who I am.
It's interesting to hear this soft side of Will too, because so much of this album has been loud, abrasive, very put the spotlight on me kind of side of things.
And I'm gonna be
So there's still the room noise here. And you're gonna be what? And you're gonna be what? Did I miss something at the beginning of that sentence? Was the syntax reversed? Well, dude. Okay. Honestly, I just want to get to the lyrics. I want to know I don't know what he's singing about there. I feel like I missed something pretty big. Yeah, Dr. Sunshine is Dead though. This is, I think, the heaviest moment of the album. And it's been a heavy album in general. Lots of layers. Will's just been screaming this whole time. I mean, obviously he kind of reins that in too, but raspy, distorted cleans are all over the place. Those fry screams are used comparatively sparingly, but still multiple times per song. There's definitely a manic element to this entire album that he presents really well with that free screaming style. It doesn't sound restrained at all. But something about this track, I don't know if it's the instruments being used or if it's, once again, just his voice. It feels more projected than usual. It feels raspier than usual. It almost reaches into growls at times, just really getting to like a low grit there. And it's delayed. It's so heavy that it comes in behind the beat. The drums and piano will lay down beat one, and he'll be just after that, as if what he's doing has caused such lethargy within himself that he can't keep up with his own music. And it just ends up feeling incredibly emotional in a way that the other songs kind of allude towards. There has been a darkness and a weight and an anxiety to this entire album, but this really capstones it with, I think, taking all of those ideas and running them to the max. And bringing this song down at the end of the track with a slight retardando, slowing the song down as we hit these lower and lower pitches, and then just kind of ending on 30 seconds ish of silence ish. I mean, if you watch the volume meters over there, there was some sound happening at the end, but I couldn't hear anything. It was that quiet. I don't know what was being done there. Maybe it was just hissing or something. But it does feel like a return to, and this is something I didn't really bring up at the end of Self, but there's a solid like 10 seconds of silence between Self and 2012. And I thought it was odd, but I didn't know what was going on. And sometimes when that happens, it's just Spotify being dumb with their dead air between tracks. So every other track transitions nicely. The song's running right up to the end, usually a second or two of silence, pretty standard. But then here we have a bit of silence coming into Ish, which once again creates a barrier between Self and Ish and everything in between. I want to get to the lyrics so bad. Is there anything else I wanted to bring up on this one then? Other than the fact that I'm like 60% sure I've heard Dr. Sunshine is dead. Granted, it shares a lot of DNA with 2012, and maybe I'm just vaguely remembering a melody that was similar from there. The rhythmic idea was, if not identical, also very similar. Just generally, it reminds me a lot of 2012. So maybe that's just it, but I don't know, dude. Even some of the less Spanish influenced ideas, I was accurately calling in a way that I haven't done on this album as consistently as this. Ideas that are repeated, yeah, I'm going to pick up on those patterns. Most people would. Maybe I pick up on them a little faster, maybe I don't, but it's still things that I'm capturing pattern wise. But these weren't necessarily patterns that I've heard, and not ones that Will's showcased before. I don't know. Has this been in a movie? Has this song been in a TV show or something? I don't know. I swear I've heard this before. Not much to say on Ish because it pretty much is just Self with new lyrics, it sounds like. So pretty much everything I said about that one applies here. It acts as a nice bookend to wrap the album up. Yeah, okay, I'm excited. Lyrics. Let's hit the lyrics. I gotta know how this wraps up. You probably do know how it wraps up. You clicked on this because you've heard this album before. I'm excited. Let's go. It's interesting that, well, maybe purposeful, that I brought up this idea of self-reflection in the previous track because that seems to be what we're getting here. Verse 1 kicks off and says, "When did I become afraid of the dark? Are my eyeballs just yet to adjust to seeing the lights? The room I'm in is still the same. The shadows have not rearranged it. No, the only thing that's changed is how I see at night." So he says nothing's changed, but things are different. Nothing exterior has changed anyways. This idea of residing in the dark for so long, all of this negativity that's been surrounding him for this album, well, it doesn't seem so comfortable anymore. The dark used to be what he called home, and now he finds himself fearful within it. We do have a really cool rhyme here. It says, I fumble for the switch and strap on infrareds and wish for sunshine where the morning's somewhere else, but I can't change what time it is or dilate my irises. What time it is. Irises. I love that, dude. There's something about rhyming phrases with multisyllabic words that's just always going to tickle my fancy. It's so great. The chorus states, I'm not the sunshine and I'm not the moon. Who else could I be? And I must be no one if I'm nowhere in between. So this is the moment of transformation, of evolving out of one state, but not quite in the other yet. We're in the awkward teenage years of self-reflection and maturity. It's not fun. It's awkward. You don't know who you are. You're wrestling with identity. You know who you've been, but well, finally at a specific point, you don't want to be them anymore, and you could be anyone. It's scary, but it's exciting too. We have an analogy to the analogy of the cave, Plato's analogy here. It says, when did I become afraid of the dark? Was it when I left the cave and swore I'd never go back? He says, I'm not a flower. I'm not solar-powered calculator. Why do I need light anyways? It almost seems as if there's a part of him that is actively pushing against this self-reflection. Why do we need to seek out the light anyways? The bridge, though, brings in a bit of fear. It says the future must know where you've been, and the past predicts the state you're in. The present did and will not last. Is, isn't, was, have, hasn't, has. If everything is predetermined, the future knowing where you've been, the past predicting where you'll go, and the present being ephemeral, do we have free will? What track was it? Was it track 2 that mentioned free will? Where he said he had free will? No, maybe it was track 3. I don't remember. One of the tracks earlier, it is track 3. It says, I'm not going to listen and I'm not my volition. I am free will. Am I to blame for riding this train right by my destiny? Well, I might crack and I might loose from the track, but it's my free will. So yes, talking about having autonomy. And here we are worried about losing that, about everything being predetermined. Chorus 2 then puts his foot down, says, I will be my sunshine and I will be the moon at night. Who else can I be when I can't see? I'm nowhere now, and here's no one know to be. And we wrap up with the return to an earlier line. If dreams can come true, what does that say about nightmares? I'll stay awake tonight. So, yeah, this actually pairs very well with Hand Me My Shovel. That one was about the fear of self-reflection and about taking responsibility for past actions. And this is about the confusion and fear of taking those responsibilities and realizing what that means for you going forward. How you're going to have to re-identify yourself, figure out who you are, all of these fragments of the self you've been containing, compartmentalizing all these years. You kind of got to bring them all together. They're all a part of you, but none of them are you. And now you're also a blank slate. Where do you go from here? Is it all predetermined? Did I have no choice in this journey? Yeah, I think this is a great way to wrap up this narrative here. If Self and Ish are a frame story for the narrative that takes place between tracks 2 and 7, this is a great way to wrap that up. Let's see how this frame story of playing at a high class event helps wrap up the entirety of the album. All right. So this does play off of Self's lyrics. It kicks off and says, "If winter comes and takes my life." If you'll remember, the opening verse of Self was about autumn coming and taking the lives of others, shaking down the apple tree, the family tree for apples, and having the leaves fall and be taken away. This one says, "If winter comes and takes me, will it be the death I had in mind, or will I be captured in the ice to preserve the way I died?" This concept of being frozen, to be remembered. I don't think it's necessarily about winter and freezing at all. I think it's about the preservation of the self, of who you were. In a sense, artists preserve who they are at a specific moment in time when they create art. He wonders if all of his life will be like this, captured and preserved moments of it, remembered as the way he presented himself at those points in time. Verse 2 says, "At 27, will I see that I was born to be the man I will be? And if I change myself, can I still stay me, or did I just change my mind?" And I think that's an interesting way to perceive that. In that, has your identity actually changed, or do you just perceive things differently? Here, is it actually a change of the heart or just of the mind? Do you still have those tendencies, you just simply choose not to act on them? I think both can be true. We are our actions, and if you're simply choosing your actions based off of your mind of how you'd rather be than what you are, it's still your actions that are present in the lives of other people. It is, in a sense, changing yourself, but also changing your mind. Now, after all these questions, though, we shift to verse 3, which is a series of statements. "I am a point in time and space, and I am the truth that I create. And so, where my matter takes its stand, no, it doesn't matter who I am. And I'm gonna be." And I love the way this wraps up. So much of this album is about identity, but also about performative identity, which I think lines up with the overdramatic and theatrical elements in a lot of the music itself. It's about perception of the self, both of your own perception of who you are versus who you feel you are versus who you know you are. The idea of the interior clashing with the exterior, of wearing masks, of code switching, of being different around different people, and all of this clashing to a point where you don't know who you really are. And it ends up saying that I am just this. Why do I need to put a label on this? Why do I need to compartmentalize all of this? I am simply a point in time and space. It says, "I am a truth that I create." So there we go about free will versus destiny. It says, "I create my own truth. And it doesn't matter who I am, and I'm going to be." And I remember at the end of the track, I was like, "What are you going to be?" Because I didn't feel like it was over. But the sentence is, we have an action and a verb, going to be. Simple existence is what is stated here at the end. Why am I worrying about all of this? Why do I need to put labels on who I am? Why do I need to dig down and find out all of this stuff? Why can't I just exist? Why can't I just be? Well, that question is answered here. Will comes to the conclusion that he can just be, and he decides that I'm just gonna be. And I love that because so much of this album is about the past, it's about the future, it's about everything but the present. Here, at the final moments, he says, I'm simply going to be present. I'm going to acknowledge the here and now, this point in time, this point in space, my immediate surroundings at this moment. That's what I'm going to care about. And whatever I do in those moments, whatever I say or am, however I act, whatever identity I kind of have, I don't need a label for it. It's just going to be me. It's going to be myself. Ish. Because even self itself is a label. He seems to be having moved beyond that. It's an interesting little tale in here. An interesting exploration that at times can get rather deep and at other times feels a bit surface level, but is consistently trying to figure out the best way to simply be. And I think at the end, he does. There's no need for labels. We don't need a Dr. Sunshine. We don't need an existential crisis of what it means to be. Will has come to the conclusion that simple existence is good enough. And you know what? There are days I agree with that. Sometimes I get a little bit more philosophical. I can't lie, I love digging into things. If you haven't noticed from the 6 years of this channel, but it's also equally alluring to just take things at face value and appreciate them for what they are. These are my thoughts. Will Wood and the Tapeworms, Stealth-ish. What did you think of this album, though? Did you enjoy it? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you would like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Do you have your own take, perspective, or opinion on the album? Let me know. Put all that stuff and anything else you'd like to add, as well as answers to any of my questions throughout this video, into the comment section below. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here, you can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back on January 4th. We're going to do a live stream at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4 p.m. UTC. Usually goes for about 2 hours. And yes, that is, a little bit in the future, y'all. January 4th. Don't show up this Sunday. Looking forward to that. And then on January 5th, we'll return back to the usual reactions at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope you all have a fantastic winter season. And if you celebrate anything, I hope your holidays are excellent. I will see you all in the new year. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.